Hi, my name's Sarah, and this is my sister Katie.
And we just want to remind everybody that girls like rock too. So tell me, Sarah, do
Yes.
girls like Canadian rock?
Yeah, girls love Canadian rock.
Especially these two girls.
That's right.
So if anyone's following the news, which who isn't these days because it's wild times, there was a lot of stuff going on this week between Canada and the US.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah. We want to keep our show light, so I won't get too much into the nitty-gritty of everything. But, of course, Trump has threatened to impose a lot of tariffs that could potentially squash the Canadian economy.
Yep.
And as stressful as this week has been, I've noticed, and so many people have commented, that it's really brought the nation together.
Yeah, definitely. That Canadian pride has come out in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
And even I've noticed people are actually speaking up for Trudeau and saying he did a good job.
Yeah. And
with his speech.
Yeah.
So, like I said, we're not going to get into politics here. We're talking about rock music.
Yeah.
But my point is, I know I even made a conscious effort this week to listen to Canadian music.
You know, it's funny you say that, Katie. I did as well.
Yeah.
Yep. And there's some really good Canadian music out there.
There is.
Yeah.
So my commute to work is anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes. And this week, typically when I go to work, I used to be very good and make playlists. I don't know what you do. I just say, Siri, play YouTube music.
Oh, wow. I do have a drive playlist, and I've just been adding 200 songs to that, and then I just play that.
I should make a playlist because I get sometimes the most random things. But it was kind of a fun challenge for myself to see, okay, how much does Canadian music show up on my YouTube? And you know what? It was actually a decent amount.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
So
what kind of gems came out, Katie? The Canadian gems.
Canadian gems. So Nickelback.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I would think because, as we all know, our phones listen to everything.
Yeah.
So I would imagine from hanging out with you and us talking about Nickelback, my phone probably picked up on that.
Yeah. No, Nickelback creeps into our conversations if I'm around, for sure.
Yeah. So you'd be very proud of me, Sarah. I did listen to How You Remind Me.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That's a classic.
It is. And yeah, I was pretty proud of myself. Quite a bit of Canadian music came up.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any Canadian artists circulating your drive playlist other than Nickelback?
Yeah, after the events of the last 2 weeks, as we mentioned, being Canadian, hyper aware of supporting more Canadian content. I have made also an effort, and so I have Sloan and Sam Roberts in my drive commute playlist now. Yep. And I recently, they're not new, but in the last couple of months got into the Glorious Sons.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're really good.
They are.
Yeah.
But do you know their connection to the Beaches?
No,
Blaine Brett? That's the Glorious Sons lead singer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't connect.
You know, this is another thing I love about Canada is when you research into music, it's all kind of intertwined and people are friends.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like that's very Canadian, everybody being friends with everybody. But yeah, Beaches, another band we've mentioned on the show before because we're both
great band.
Yeah, we're both huge fans. Well, I don't know if you are. I'm a huge fan of the Beaches. And yeah, I listened to them talking the one day, and the lead singer of the Beaches, she dated Brett. I don't know his last name, but from the Glorious Sons.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I guess they had a pretty nasty breakup, and kind of a burn to him because that song's huge now. And
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Anyway, so some random Canadian trivia for you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. You learn something new every time on this podcast. So. And they just have a cool, they have a Canadian vibe, but a bit of country alternative, kind of blending it and really kind of made it their own. I think they're from Kingston.
Man,
So
Kingston has such a music like history, and apparently currently too, because Glorious Sons are still
still kicking.
yeah. And everybody knows, of course, Canada, you think of the Tragically Hip.
Of course.
So
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
from Kingston.
That's right. Yes.
yeah. Headstones.
Headstones.
They're
are
from Kingston.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And David Usher from Moist. He's from Kingston. So
he? Oh, I didn't know
apparently
that.
Hugh Dillon from the Headstones, he's the lead singer, and David Usher. And who else? There was someone else where all three of them went to high school at the same time.
Wow.
And in Kingston. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah. I wouldn't have thought Kingston would be a spot for that, but that's really cool.
Yeah. So, no, speaking of like a country alternative rock vibe that's Canadian, do you ever listen to the Sheepdogs?
It's funny because I think because I've been listening to the Glorious Sons, the Sheepdogs are popping
kinda,
up on my
yeah.
YouTube music. And I just thought about that. I'm like, I should check out the Sheepdogs more. I maybe know a couple of
I
their singles.
feel like you would
but-
like them. They're kind of
Yeah.
got that like 70s, like cool
Yeah.
rock vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're like one of my new favorite bands, the Glorious
cool.
Sons.
I'll
Yeah,
check them
they're
out a bit
great.
more.
Yeah, highly recommend.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, my two ultimates are Sloan and Sam Roberts.
Yeah. You and Sam Roberts go way back.
Me and Sam Roberts, we go way back.
Yeah.
He's great. Listening to him a lot.
Yeah.
They have so many albums out. But, the classic We Were Born in a Flame, his first big major label album. Nostalgia as well, right? We were probably in high school when that was
Oh, man.
out.
We saw him play for free at Harris Park in London, Ontario for
right.
Balloon Fest. I think that may have been 2002, 2003.
So, long time ago.
Yeah. And then we got the honor of seeing him play at Cowapalooza.
Cowapalooza.
Which, if you are not familiar with Oxford County, the dairy capital of the world,
That's right.
we have Cowapalooza. And lately, the last few years, we've had some pretty good artists headline.
Yeah. I mean, Sam Roberts did it. That would be what, 2020?
2023.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2023. And he was like great.
That was such a good show.
Such a good show. The energy on stage. I don't know. He kind of, not that I forgot about him, like he's always in my radar. But,
Yeah.
I kind of fell back in love with him.
Yeah.
For Cowapalooza. And I was like, oh, wow. I forgot how. Yeah, just how sexy Sam Roberts is.
Oh, we should have had him on our sexiest rock
right.
star
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah, we should.
We'll have to do part 2.
That's right.
Yeah. And speaking of nostalgia, like Sarah and I, every summer when we were in high school, we went to Montreal to visit our aunt. And I remember, I want to say you even bought his first EP in Montreal.
Oh, maybe. Yeah,
I think on our trip.
he had the EP.
Yeah.
That's right, with like Brother Down.
Yeah. And I believe he's from Montreal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sam Roberts. Yeah. And actually, Sam Roberts was the first couple of albums, but now I think they're called like the Sam Roberts Band.
Yeah, that's cool.
So they changed it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't really know the other band mates, like if they've been in the band a
me
long time.
neither.
But
Whoever he played with at Cowapalooza, they were all good.
oh, they were
Yeah.
great. Yeah. I would.
And then we met
definitely
him.
See them again. Yes, we met Sam Roberts
After the show.
through a fence.
Yeah. Again, though, so Canadian. Like, he was just so nice.
He was so nice. Yeah.
Talked to all the fans. And
Yeah.
he
Took the time to like say hi to everybody.
Oh, yeah. He took the time to say hi. And he talked to us for, I want to say, a good 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I mentioned Harris Park that we saw him there, he even remembered, obviously not us. No.
We're so memorable, though.
I know. But he was like, oh, yeah, Balloon Festival. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
my gosh.
he did remember it. That
You
was
even,
really cool.
Like, that's
and
so
I mean,
cool.
gosh, Sam Roberts, he's had such a great career. He's,
Yeah.
I'm sure, done so many festivals, especially around Ontario and Canada. So
Yeah.
that was cool that he totally remembered that night.
Yeah. No, that was awesome.
Yeah.
So shout out to Sam Roberts. Speaking of Sam Roberts Band,
Yeah.
what's another good band? Matthew Good Band?
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure where you were going with that. Matthew Good Band.
I'm
Yeah.
just being super cheesy. But so Matthew Good Band, anyone from Canada, Big Shiny Tunes.
Oh, Big Shiny Tunes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we happen to have any people from other areas than Canada listening. Big Shiny Tunes was a compilation album from Much Music, which was Canada's equivalent to MTV.
Yep.
And I think everyone and their dog owned one Big Shiny Tunes album.
It was a staple.
Yeah.
It was a staple if you're Canadian millennial or
Yeah.
There
was always a Matthew Good Band song on it.
Matthew Good was another staple for a
Oh
few
my
years
gosh.
there. Much Music and everything. Yeah.
Unfortunately, in our household, this is going to sound completely unpatriotic, but when we were growing up, our brother, maybe you too, not to throw you under the bus, but I feel like he kind of instilled in us that Canadian music isn't cool.
Well, with this episode, I was going to kind of mention that, like,
in our house.
Well, just in general, though, like Canadian bands, I was thinking of like Sam Roberts. Having said that, Sam Roberts, he has toured a bit in Europe. But like Sam Roberts, Sloan, these really great bands, Matthew Good Band, and they just never able to really. I respect him as an artist. I don't really know him very much, but in my older age, but like just didn't really able to make it in the States.
No.
And I often think of Sloan in particular, and I guess because deep in my heart I am a Britpopper.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh no, that's okay.
And Sloan, like their vibe and their music, I think they would have done really well in the UK.
Yeah.
Like I know there's so much that goes into that, your record label, and I can't imagine how much work that is to especially before, what the internet and social media is today. Maybe it's a bit, I don't want to say easier, but a bit more accessible,
I think,
right? Music sharing now.
I think it's definitely easier now.
Yeah.
Because
back in the day.
Even look at what we're doing now with the podcast. Like back in the day, you'd have to try to get a radio show.
Yeah.
So I think now it's so different. At the same time, it's also more challenging because you don't get that record label money backing you. You don't get, there's so much competition now, which you didn't have back in the day.
It's so different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, it is unfortunate. There are some bands, like you said, Sloan, where I think if they had more money, or I don't know, that would be my assumption. Part of it was finances. I think they could have done really well overseas.
I mean, Sloan, maybe for me it's also nostalgia because again, Sloan, if you're Canadian and you have not been living under a rock for the last 20 years,
you'll know Sloan.
Right? And you could probably sing a couple of their songs. They are so good. Sloan.
You know what? They are, because they popped up on my YouTube random play the last few weeks. And like if it feels good, do it.
Yeah.
You can't help but be like, like this song's got a kick.
And just a cool mix. You can hear that, their influences are American, probably I would say UK bands as well. And they just kind of mixed it in with this Canadian vibe. Yeah. And they just did it so well, Sloan. Yeah. And I just I don't know. I mean, they've had a really great career in Canada.
They have. They've done really well here.
They have done well.
I want to say their album, the one Chris had from like 1995.
One Chord to Another.
I want to say that did decent in the States.
Yes. Oh, sorry. I know it did well in Canada.
Did it not necessarily?
I read somewhere, I'm really cool, and on my evenings, I read up on Sloan and Canadian bands on Wikipedia.
I read Sinner's Creed, so...
Oh, right, you did. Okay, so that... Yeah.
So I don't have any judgment when it comes to reading material.
Good, okay. I think it sold like 80,000 copies in Canada.
Okay.
Which is, good.
Well, I want to say Our Lady Peace, too. I think Clumsy did pretty well in the States, didn't it?
Our Lady Peace, yeah.
They've done well for themselves.
Well. I just... looking on like YouTube Music and their plays, like millions.
Yeah,
which
Superman's Dead. That had to have done well on alternative rock charts.
Yeah, I would think so. I think they've toured in the States.
Yeah.
OLP have done well for themselves.
Yeah.
And the older I get, I wasn't really into Our Lady Peace back in the day. But,
no.
But I've grown to really actually enjoy their music.
Yeah. I've always liked Our Lady Peace.
Yeah.
Clumsy is a really good album.
Yeah, it's a classic. It's a Canadian classic.
It's a very it's a very 1990s alternative rock album.
Yeah, they did that sound really well.
Yeah. And I even liked their album before Clumsy with Navid, and oh my gosh. Again, I'm going to sound terrible. Obviously, I haven't done my research. There's the 2 big songs from their album before Clumsy, and they're good too. Again, when I was young, those songs would come on the radio. I'd be like, ew, click, change.
I know.
And now I'm just like, man, I'm appreciating Canadian music so much more. I think that's also a maturity thing.
Yeah, maybe the mid 90s to the early 2000s, it was all you had to be from the States or you had to be from the UK.
Yeah.
But there's some really good Canadian music out there that was produced during that time. And yes, I don't know what the word is, embarrassed to admit that I didn't maybe give it a chance.
Ashamed. I'm ashamed that in my younger years, I assumed because it was Canadian that I wasn't going to give it the time of day. I wish I would have listened to Canadian music more in high school with pride.
Yeah, but there was also that push where, you know, the Canadian content that has to be played, like a certain amount.
Yes.
Which I get that because we are beside such a huge country, and
are they going to play Sloan,
that
Nirvana?
that could take over, of course, right? What are you going to play? Sloan, Nirvana, or Oasis?
Yeah,
right. So I think that's great to support Canadian music, but that was pushed on us so much.
It felt forced.
It felt forced, and like, oh, it has to sound Canadian. And if a band got really big, you know, huge, like Shania Twain, Bryan Adams, great artists. I love Bryan and Shania, but they kind of lose that Canadian sound, or culture, right? To be huge on an international level, and you know, some bands, Sloan is a big example where they didn't really, they kept that Canadian.
Oh, they totally
sound.
kept that Canadian,
which now I really
vibe.
Appreciate, and it's really cool. But, but, you know, I do, in the last decade, I have to give it to Drake and The Weeknd. They were really proud to be from where they're from, Toronto area, and they kind of made it cool.
Oh, yeah.
Shawn Mendes, too. So,
yeah, we have some Canadian people popping up. And then there's other people like Avril Lavigne. I think she talks about Canada, but it kind of felt like, okay, she moved off to LA and... you know.
Yeah. But, you know, in her defense, at that time... that's what you had to do.
Yeah,
if you wanted
that's true.
to make it huge. So it's like you have to lose all your Canadian roots and sound American or whatever, whatever that means, or keep your Canadian roots and you don't get big anywhere else.
Yeah,
that's tough.
It
right?
is.
It is kind of like that. Maybe it's better now, and like I said, I think Drake and The Weeknd paved the way for that. Hopefully, But it was like that.
Yeah,
you know?
Even the Beaches. I mean, their whole name, The Beaches, is about Toronto.
That's right.
So I think that's really cool.
An area of Toronto.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and they're great, and you know they've done well. They've opened for like the Stones, I think, in the States.
Even there was a Instagram story of Mark Hoppus, and he was playing their song, and
really?
He may have even like tagged them and been like, oh, like great song, Blame Brett. That song's really done, like really doing well for them.
That is so cool. That's a great album.
Oh, that's an awesome album, Blame My Ex. Totally, if you haven't checked it out, totally recommend that. Just again going on about the idea of Canadian music and how I didn't appreciate it enough. It's just kind of sad because there's a bunch of songs that I really like that are Canadian. They're my go-to songs, but then I don't know any other songs from the artist.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of artists, to be fair, right?
Yeah.
You have like your 5 go-to songs
I
of
guess.
that band and artist, and then you're like, oh, an example of that for me would be Glorious Sons. I got into the SOS because it came up on my rotation, and I'm like, this is really great. So then I was like, I made a conscious effort to put on that album to listen to it all in the background at work. So it's work, right? To like listen to new music.
True.
You go back to what you like.
Yeah.
You know?
And some of these songs too, I like, they're from the 90s, and you've mentioned it before that in the 90s you had to come out with at least 10 songs. So what happened is, you know, potentially 80% of the songs are filter. Unless you're good like Pearl Jam or Nirvana, they're all good, or Oasis. You know, you had those bands where they were record labels like, no, you got to come out with an album now, and unfortunately some of the music wasn't necessarily as good as their single.
Some fillers, of course, and you had to make sure there was like that 1, 2, maybe 3, you know, bangers that are really going to get played on the radio, right? And it's tough because you know, but like you said, the record label, I'm sure, had their criteria. And you're like, well, we're charging $20 for these kids to come in and buy it, so we better have more than 3 songs.
Well, that's the thing, right? So at least now, that's kind of a nice thing about nowadays. Maybe there's not that pressure for filler songs.
Yeah,
I'm going to come out with
maybe it's
only
a
good
bit-
music.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of end our Canadiana with name me just like 4 or 5 like ultimate Canadian rock songs, Sarah, that you would recommend to somebody, or that you find I always go back to.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to suggest some ones that if you're Canadian, you'll know these well, but someone that's listening that maybe is new to Canada or, you're not living in Canada, these ones to start with, I would say Brother Down, Sam Roberts.
Oh, classic.
A classic one.
Yeah.
Sloan. They have so many, but
Pick one, Sarah.
pick one. If it feels good, do it.
That's a classic.
It's a classic.
Yeah.
We didn't mention them, and I'm a big fan of 5440.
Oh, they're so good.
Yeah,
I forgot about them.
I just had on rotation Ocean Pearl. 5440 is another one. I don't know why they didn't make it in the States.
And you know what's funny with them too is Hootie and the Blowfish did a cover of I Go Blind, and that just blew up. I don't know if it's because it was on the Friends soundtrack.
Probably part of it.
Yeah, but that blew up, and it's like, oh man, that was like our Canadian song.
But I have to say, Hootie and the Blowfish, they did a very good cover of that song.
They did. Oh no, they did an awesome
and,
job.
kudos to 5440. They get the royalties.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's true. Yeah, good for you.
Because that did really well. So, 4th song, Theory of a Dead Man.
Really?
I've always liked Theory of a Dead Man.
Wow. Are they still a thing?
Yeah, they still play. Yeah.
Because
I follow them
weren't
on
they the
Instagram.
protege of Chad Kroeger? Or did I make that up?
Chad heard about them through somebody, and yes, he liked them, and he signed them onto his. I don't know if he has a record label or it's with another larger record label.
That was it. I knew there was some affiliation there.
Yeah, there is, and maybe that's. I don't know if that helped them or not, but
I'm sure it did because
I've always liked
that was when
Theory
Nickelback
of a
was
Dead
huge.
Man, but Santa Monica, that's a good one. Katie's like, no.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a huge fan of that song, but
well, how about Nothing Will Come Between Us?
that one I definitely prefer over Santa Monica.
Okay, Nothing Will Come Between Us, Theory of a Dead Man. And 5th, you know what? I'm just going to say the entire Jagged Little Pill album. I know
that's
it's
fair.
like
That's fair.
international and huge, but I still think Alanis Morissette is amazing, and that album is amazing. So if you
And
don't
that
know
album,
check it out.
kind of put Canadian music on the map a bit.
It helped.
Yeah,
it
it definitely helped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Katie, I'm going to throw it back at you. 5 rock songs for from Canadian bands.
Okay. Well, I am going to go with Matthew Good, Alert Status Red.
Nice.
Yeah. That was his solo thing. That wasn't Matthew Good band. And that's just one of those songs. I don't know. I just feel like it's Canada. Just the beat of it. I just picture myself on my deck drinking a Coors Light, you know.
Very Canadian.
Yeah, I love it. So that's one of my go-tos for my YouTube playlists. And Wide Mouth Mason.
Wide Mouth Mason. Wow, I haven't heard about them in forever.
You've heard of them?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
They're from Saskatchewan, of all places.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
My Own Self. That is just like a banger. It is.
It's funny. I know that title, and I'll have to listen
You'll
to
know it.
after.
You'll honestly,
Yeah.
it's one of those songs where
I definitely know the name.
yeah, you'll put it on, you'll be like, oh, I remember
Wow.
this song. Yeah. And that's one of my go-tos. So
Nice.
yeah, Matthew Good, Wide Mouth Mason, Headstones,
Headstones. Nice.
Cubically Contained.
Oh,
That's a
okay.
good one. I'm going to go with Sum 41 Fat Lip.
Sum 41. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and similarly to Alanis Morissette, they kind of put some Canadian music on the map.
Yeah.
They did really well for
Yeah.
themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, and I liked Sum 41 a lot
Yes,
in
you
high
did.
school,
Yeah.
and it was cool to like them too. Like
Yeah,
they were
they were a cool Canadian band.
They were. I saw them when it was John Labatt Center in London.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
back in I want to say 2004. So let's end it on the Tragically Hip because I think just with Gord Downey, I want to say it was his birthday a few days ago too.
Yes.
Yeah, because
Okay.
people
Yeah.
were honoring him.
Yeah.
And
No, that's a good way to end
Yeah.
this episode.
yeah, so this is for you, Gord Downey. We're going to end with saying check out Tragically Hip Bob Cajun.
It's a good song.
Yeah. And so we want to thank everybody, Canadian, American, British, wherever you're from. We want to thank you for tuning into this episode.
Yeah, thanks a lot. We really appreciate your time.
And we want to remind everybody that
Girls like rock too.
And don't forget to hit subscribe.